Martha Charles entered the world on April 9, 1863, in Morgan, South Australia. Her early years were marked by hardship following the loss of her father during her youth. In 1870, her mother, Mary Charles, remarried to Daniel Foran and added 2 more children to their family. Living in straitened circumstances, they resided in a modest 2-room dwelling in North Adelaide. Martha recounted enduring physical abuse from her mother, often subjected to beatings with a stick or rope. As a result, at just 13, she departed from home and commenced employment as a housekeeper. At 18, Martha married Henry Needle in 1882, finding some semblance of happiness initially. Together they welcomed 3 daughters, Mabel, Elsie, and May, before relocating to the Melbourne suburb of Richmond in 1885. However, their move heralded a decline in the relationship between Martha and Henry. Martha, an attractive woman who enjoyed socializing with men, clashed with Henry, a shy and jealous individual who often resorted to physical violence against her. On February 23, 1885, Mabel Needle passed away, following a brief illness. Needle mentioned that Mabel appeared to gradually decline, and later received £100 from Mabel's life insurance. Subsequently, Henry Needle, insured for £200, succumbed to an illness on October 4, 1889. Followed by the deaths of Elsie and May in 1890, leaving doctors puzzled. Nearly all the insurance proceeds were utilized by Needle to create an intricate family grave, which she frequented regularly. Louis Junkin, a friend from Adelaide, co-ran a saddlery business in Richmond with his brother Otto Junkin. In 1881, Needle sublet the connected house and accommodated lodgers. A romantic relationship between Needle and Otto commenced in 1893, but faced disapproval from Louise and their other brother, Herman, who attempted to thwart their engagement. The subsequent year, Louise fell ill and passed away, suspected to have contracted typhoid. In June 1894, Herman traveled from Adelaide to Melbourne to handle his late brother's affairs. After consuming a meal prepared by Needle, he suddenly fell ill. Although he initially recovered, Herman experienced another bout of illness the following day after breakfast. Subsequently, while dining on lunch prepared by Needle, he was afflicted by excruciating cramps. Dr. Boyd suspected poisoning and obtained a sample of Herman's vomit, sending it to the government laboratory for analysis. The laboratory's findings revealed the presence of arsenic in the sample. Boyd alerted the police about his suspicions, prompting them to devise a plan. They asked Herman to request Needle to prepare lunch. As Herman was served tea, he covertly signaled for help. Detectives swiftly arrived as Needle and Herman struggled, preventing the teacup from being overturned. The cup was later discovered to contain a lethal amount of arsenic, capable of killing 5 people. Following this incident, Needle faced charges of attempted murder. The authorities exhumed the bodies of Louise Junkin from Lyndoch, South Australia, and sent samples to Melbourne. Additionally, the bodies of Henry Needle and the 3 daughters buried in Kew were also exhumed. All 5 bodies showed fatal levels of arsenic, leading to Needle being charged with the murder of Louise Junkin. Her trial spanned 3 days. Despite pleading not guilty, she was convicted and sentenced to death. Throughout her incarceration, Needle received frequent visits from friends. In her final letter to a friend named Mrs. Owen, she penned, "Try not to grieve too much for me." On October 22, 1894, at 8 a.m., she was executed. When asked for her last words, she simply replied, "I have nothing to say." Anna Hahn was born the youngest among 12 siblings, though her parents experienced the loss of 5 of her siblings before her birth. Her father, George Filser, was a prosperous furniture manufacturer, providing the family with financial stability. At the age of 19, she became pregnant with her son Oscar. In response to the scandal, Hahn's shocked family sent her to the United States in 1929, while Oscar remained in Bavaria under the care of her parents. During her stay with relatives Max and Anna Doeschel in Cincinnati, Ohio, Anna Hahn encountered Philip Hahn, a fellow German immigrant. They married in 1930. After a brief return to Germany to retrieve Oscar, Anna and Philip began their own family. Allegedly, Hahn embarked on a sinister path of poisoning and robbing elderly men within the Cincinnati's German community to fuel her gambling addiction. Ernest Kohlherr, whose passing occurred on May 6, 1933, was purportedly her initial victim. Hahn had formed a close bond with Kohlherr shortly before his demise, ultimately inheriting a house from him as stipulated in his will. The sequence continued with her next alleged victim, Albert Parker, age 72, whose death closely followed Hahn's involvement in his care. Before Parker's passing, she had borrowed $1,000 from him and signed an IOU. However, post his demise, this document mysteriously vanished. Jacob Wagner, age 78, perished on June 3, 1937, leaving behind $17,000 in cash to his beloved niece, Hahn. Soon after, she assumed the role of caregiver for 67-year-old George Selman in Cincinnati, receiving another $17,000 for her services prior to his death on July 6, 1937. Hahn's final victim, George Abendorfer, met his demise on August 1, 1937, during a trip to Colorado Springs, Colorado, accompanied by Hahn and her son. Police reports indicated that Abendorfer, a cobbler, suffered excruciatingly before his passing. They noted Hahn's peculiar behavior, as she supposedly feigned ignorance about the dying man's identity while leaning over his deathbed. Her son testified during her trial, recounting their joint journey with Abendorfer from Cincinnati to Colorado by train and the onset of Abendorfer's illness during the trip. Following an autopsy that unveiled elevated arsenic levels in Abendorfer's body, law enforcement grew suspicious. Exhumations of two of Hahn's previous clients confirmed that they had also been victims of poisoning. As a result, Hahn emerged as the primary suspect and was swiftly apprehended by authorities. Subsequently, after a 4-week trial in November 1937, she was found guilty. The court sentenced her to death, and on December 7, 1938, she was executed in the electric chair at the Ohio Penitentiary in Columbus. Her final resting place is in Mount Calvary Cemetery in Columbus, where she was interred following her execution. Martha Rendle took up residence with Thomas Morris in East Perth following his separation from his wife, who had relocated elsewhere. Morris, who had custody of his 4 children, knew Rendle from their time in Adelaide, South Australia. Having followed Morris to the west, Rendle moved into the household and assumed the role of his wife, instructing the children to address her as mother. Tragically, Rendle subjected Morris's children to severe abuse, inflicting such brutal beatings that Annie, one of the children, was left unable to walk after a particularly vicious attack. Inspector Harry Mann, the arresting officer, remarked that Rendle took pleasure in witnessing the agony of her victims. Rendle's method of killing started with 9-year-old Annie. She surreptitiously introduced something into the child's food that led to a severe sore throat. Allegations surfaced that Rendle used hydrochloric acid on the backs of the children's throat under the guise of medical treatment. This tactic caused inflammation, rendering the children unable to eat, leading to eventual starvation. Annie passed away on July 28, 1907, with Dr. Cuthbert issuing a death certificate citing diphtheria as the cause. Following Annie's death, Rendle focused on Olive, age 7, who also succumbed to similar circumstances on October 16, 1907. Once more, Dr. Cuthbert attributed the cause of death to diphtheria. In the winter of 1908, Rendle attempted the same lethal method on Arthur, the youngest surviving son, at age 15. His demise occurred nearly a year after Olive's passing on October 8, 1908, prompting Dr. Cuthbert to request permission for an autopsy. Rendle, insisting on being present during the investigation, watched as doctors conducted the procedure. However, no evidence incriminating her was discovered. By April 1909, Rendle turned her attention to George, the second son. Soon after drinking tea, the boy complained of a sore throat. Rendle applied the harmful substance to his tonsils, causing him distress. George, frightened, fled to his mother's residence several streets away. Neighbors inquired about the boy's whereabouts, but his father, Thomas Morris, claimed ignorance regarding his location. Neighbors reported the disturbing incidents to police, prompting Inspector Harry Mann to initiate an investigation. Throughout his inquiries, Mann encountered consistent accounts of the children having their throats treated and noted Rendle's apparent lack of concern for their suffering. One neighbor mentioned glimpsing through the window and witnessing Rendle standing in front of a screaming child, seemingly in a state of pleasure, swaying as if experiencing ecstasy. Mann managed to locate George, who disclosed that he fled because he believed his stepmother had killed his siblings and was attempting to poison him with spirits of salts. The investigation faced challenges due to the time elapsed since the deaths and uncertainty regarding the effects of swabbing with spirits of salt. Suspicion grew stronger when it was revealed that Rendle had purchased substantial quantities of spirits of salt during the children's illnesses, but hadn't made any purchases after the last death. Armed with this information, detectives sought permission to exhume the bodies, which took place on July 3, 1909. Exhumation of the 3 children's bodies revealed traces of diluted hydrochloric acid on their throat tissue. Both Rendle and Thomas Morris were charged with murder. Rendle received a death sentence by hanging, fervently maintaining her innocence by asserting that she was treating the children for diphtheria. Morris, although implicated in the murders due to purchasing spirits of salt, was acquitted. The belief was that he was unaware of Rendle's actions until after the children's deaths. The jury had wished to charge him as an accessory after the fact, but legal constraints prevented this decision. Rendle's heinous acts ignited widespread public outrage during that period. Media outlets depicted her as a scarlet woman and a wicked stepmother, while Rendle vehemently professed her innocence. On October 6, 1909, she was executed by hanging at Fremantle Prison. Her final resting place is at Fremantle Cemetery. Notably, Martha Rendle was the last woman to be executed in Western Australia. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing by clicking the red subscribe button below. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world to us. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.